Okay, hi, my name is Alexis. I chose Glacier National Park because I visited there in 2019 and I wanted to share its beauty. So, I think there are three main aspects that I wanted to mention at the very least that make Glacier National Park unique. The first one is Belt Supergroup. It's a giant slab of exposed sediment layers that are from the Proterozoic and Precambrian eras, and that's some of the oldest rock that we have access to on the continent, and really in the world. It's very uncommon that you get rock from that age exposed so readily. Then there's the glaciers from Glacier National Park. There used to be 150 of them in the park, and now there's only 26. And they created a lot of the other unique formations in the park, like U-shaped rather than V-shaped valleys, fjords, and hanging valleys. A lot of those features. And then there's the hanging valleys that are also created by glaciers. Um, base to dumb it down to one sentence, it's a small glacier that is separate from a much larger glacier, but they're eroding areas very close to each other or maybe even within each other. And the smaller glacier doesn't do it as fast. So it just doesn't keep up with the larger glacier. So the Belt Supergroup the movement of the Belt Supergroup began in the Mesoproterozoic era, and it started during the Laramide orogeny, where the slab of these sediment layers were forced against the side, and like it's not a fault and it's not a plate, but the side of the Lewis overthrust. And it was forced above surface, and now we get these thick layers that are really visible and very beautifully seen. And that it was the movement of the Lewis overthrust against that slab that made the slab move up above the surface. And then the glaciers that are still present from those 150 original glaciers are estimated to be about 7,000 years old, and they were formed during the Little Ice Age. Over time, they just compressed and they moved with the force of gravity, because gravity has so much force on masses that big, and they were pulled down and they created the valleys and beautiful rock that we get to see. The exposed rock that we get to see is because of those glaciers. Then the hanging valleys, like I said, it's a smaller glacier right next to a larger glacier, and that larger glacier is being pulled down much faster and with much more force because of its own weight than the smaller glacier. And that smaller glacier creates a valley within a valley, basically, looking from the outside. And it just creates waterfalls and really just a lot of beauty for the park. So these features are so important for a lot of reasons. The Belt Supergroup is vital to the geologic history because we don't get access to those layers of rock really anywhere else. It's one of the only places on the continent that we get to see and be witness to those rocks of that age. And we wouldn't know a lot about the geologic history if we didn't have access to those rocks. Then the glaciers provide a lot of the water, the nutrients, and the life-sustaining aspects for this national park. It is home to so many different kinds of ecosystems that all meet in one place because it has been preserved so beautifully. And without these glaciers, these life forms and these animals and these species would not thrive as they have. And they're just really important. Then the hanging valleys also provide a lot of the function for these ecosystems. They allow for the movement of sediment, erosion, rock, and water. Like there's so much movement that happens because of these hanging valleys, and they're vital for that movement. And it might seem like not much would change without them, but there would be a lack of perpetuation without them. And that's why they're so important. Then this is what the Belt Supergroup looks like. These layers are much more curved and bent than you would see in Glacier National Park, but you can just see the layers really well in this picture, so I used it. But they're more straight layers in the Belt Supergroup in Glacier National Park, but you can see the layers really well. And so it's a giant slab of layers like that got pushed above surface. And then the red line outlines Blackfoot Glacier, and that's the biggest glacier in Glacier National Park that's left. It covers, I think it's 0.7 square miles, and it used to be connected to one of its surrounding glaciers, and it used to cover hundreds of square miles, so it's definitely shrunk. And then I don't know if you can tell, but there's a valley, and then within that valley there's a smaller U shape. And so the smaller glacier sat on top of the smaller U shape, and the bigger glacier sat in the big one, and they just eroded at different paces. And so it created this hanging valley, and it created that waterfall of sorts. And that's what I have. I hope you learned something new today.